You know we like to gamble on this podcast, so we're hitting the strip, diving deep into the Vegas Golden Knights on the Wednesday episode of your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and we're getting hot and heavy with these Golden Knights. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads, fantasy fanatics, and degenerate gamblers, what is going on? And welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Happy hump day, everybody, and shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. First and foremost, Mr. Roden, Sunday Ticket. Giddy up. I might have to dive into that myself because NFL season is going to be back in full swing, but so is, and more importantly, NHL hockey season, baby. And before Steele and I wrap up our NHL-wide breakdown of every single squad, there's a few more to go. You know we're going to be diving deep into the fantasy draft prep. However, today's episode, Wednesday, top 5 fantasy targets steal the Vegas Golden Knights. I alluded it to you off air, but I'm just going to pass it over to you and listen to what you have to say here because I have some concerns. And this list, as much as I do like it and I like some of these options here, it was a little bit tough for me to pull together, especially at the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a different looking Vegas Golden Knights team, but we know what this Vegas team means. It's business as usual. You know, sometimes loyalty does not matter and they're going to get the job done. And that's why they are a recent Stanley Cup champion. So they're going to do what is best for the organization. And clearly they've gone down a very different route than what we've seen, same route, but they're bringing in new faces and new players into the organization. Jonathan Marchessault was not brought back. Riley Smith was traded. Logan Thompson was traded. Braden McNabb's gone, I believe. So this is definitely, not Braden McNabb.
Braden McNabb's still there.
Braden McNabb's still there. Someone left. I'm blanking on the defensive name, but I believe he joined the Chicago Blackhawks or something. But
Alec Martinez could be the guy you're thinking of.
Alec Martinez, not McNabb. You know, it starts with an M. I was close enough, but still new faces and new places, and a lot of new faces in this Vegas Golden Knights roster right now. So it's going to be interesting what you and I both believe should be the top 5 targets, who goes where. I think you and I are unanimous on the decision that it is Jack Eichel as the number 1 target off the board of this Vegas Golden Knights roster going into the upcoming draft. Again, even with the injury concern, which I'm going to dive into, 68 points in 63 games last season. This I absolutely adore this player. I wish he could stay healthy. I like him so much. 278 shots last year, 61 blocks, 26 hits, which is just a cherry on top of everything that he already does. 22 power play points with 7 game-winning goals. He also has some pizzazz on the penalty kill as well. He had 2 shorthanded assists last season, so he gets some penalty kill time. Looking for those new words every week. You know what
I appreciate you big time.
Jack
I'm feeling
Eichel,
that one.
though, look, this is a guy who has had some serious concerns, so you always have to be wary about where you're taking him in the draft. In the last 4 seasons, he is still not yet hit over 70 games played. But even then, he's been pretty much a point-per-game player, type of player in the NHL. So for me, going and looking at what his average draft position was last year, he was going in the 3rd round. He was going 30th overall. And that would be more than accurate if he was playing a full, 82-game season or even more than 72 games. But that's the nail right there. Is he's been injured. The injury concern has been a problem for him. I think landing Jack Eichel somewhere in the 5th round is exactly where he should be falling right now because of that injury concern and the consistency of the last 3 seasons of 63 games, 67 games, 68 games. So some injury concern with this player, but when he is in, boy, oh boy, do I love watching him play. I love what he does, the skill set that he has, the shot that he can do. He has one of the best wrist shots in the game, in my opinion. And I love the skill set and the stick handling ability that he has in the offensive zone. So number 1 target, 5th overall is where I'm placing Jack Eichel.
You know, I like to say this, Steele. Slam dunk first overall fantasy target for this team. It's Jack Eichel. And I'm going to save the rest of this show to discuss the rest of this list, because now I really don't know if you and I will have the same guys here in the same positions. Lately, you and I have been pretty spot on, and I've been liking these lists. However, Jack Eichel, very quickly, game-changing ability, game-changing offensive, and a bone in his body that just feels clutch. And I know there's been some injuries and busted bones in that body as well, Steele. But when he is on the ice, he is a game-changing offensive force. And with the puck on his stick, you feel almost like, this is how I get from him, that he's going to do something special every single time he busts down that wing or up the middle. That's how I feel about Jack Eichel. Needed to get those notes out. 63 games played last year, 68 points, 27 penalty minutes. You mentioned the shots on net. He also chips in 61 block shots. I don't exactly hate it. 27 penalty minutes, as I mentioned. You really do like this player when he's on the ice, Steele. But my concern is when you look at some of these other pieces and their inability to stay in the lineup, Mark Stone, Tomas Hertl, and others, the pressure is on Jack Eichel to be the guy now more than ever. And I don't know if that's going to do good things for a guy with an injury history. That's just me speculating. Hit me with your take on that if you'd like. But number 2, I got Noah Hanifin. Hit me with your take on that, because I have a feeling if Hanifin's not at number 2 for you, we're going to be talking about him real soon anyway.
We are going to be talking about him soon, but not quite yet. I want so badly to have Noah Hanifin as the number 2 target off this board. Okay. For me, I'm going to go with Tomas Hertl here. Whoa. I think he's going to be an absolute stud for the Vegas Golden Knights. You know, the last few seasons for the San Jose Sharks, we all know how bad it's been over there. This has been a rebuild for them in the making for the last couple of seasons. The only guy left there is Logan Couture. There's not much to really believe in when it comes to the San Jose Sharks team right now. I know we talked about them and some of the great prospects they have coming up, but they are going to be a bad team. There are some fantasy assets for them that be had. Celebrini and Logan Couture being 2 of them, in my opinion. But this is a different situation for Hertl coming into a full season with the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, another player who was injured quite a bit last season, only played 54 games, still finished with 38 points, 49 blocks, 59 hits, 124 hits. I think playing in that top 6 forward group with this Vegas team is going to do wonders for his game and get back to what we saw him doing back in 2021, 2018, when he had his career year of 74 points. He's going to be playing with Mark Stone. He's going to be playing with Jack Eichel on the first power play unit. He's going to be in front of the net and be one of those door stoppers, just digging for rebounds and doing everything he can on the power play. I'm putting a lot of emphasis, again, on the offensive side right now over the defensive side. Again, you got to be very concerned with some of the injuries to this group. This alongside the Columbus Blue Jackets, who we just talked about, one of the most bruised and battered teams last season. A lot of injury concerns throughout a lot of players. Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Shea Theodore, who we're going to talk about, Alex Pietrangelo. So lots
Adin Hill.
Of injuries. Adin Hill as well. Look, there's lots of players that are going to be injured. That's why it very much does hurt their draft stock every single season, because they're missing over 20 games. For me, I'm going with Hertl because I think he's going to be a very great addition. I think it was a great trade for the Vegas Golden Knights when they did this last year. Yeah. And again, playing on that top power play unit, playing in the top 6 forward group, a lot of the value depends on the ability to stay healthy alongside his teammates, and his teammates to stay healthy alongside him as well. So I've got Hertl at number 2.
Noah Hanifin has been very durable over the last few years. So if we're going to put that in the column of a win for him, I'd put it there. Peripherals.
100%.
Basically similar, but I'm going to tip the cap a little bit in the block shot column and hits to Hanifin. However, Steele, I want to talk a lot more about it after the break, because Tomas Hertl comes into this season as a very intriguing, sneaky, under the radar sleeper, whatever title you want to throw on him. A guy that might be able to bust back out for 60, 65 plus points and a whole bunch of hits. You like his game? I like it too. Let's talk about it after the break. A couple more pieces, some young guns that have been brought in, Steele, that can get a good look in that top 6. I want to talk about it all and the rest of this squad. As much as we're worried about them, they should be knocking on the door for a playoff spot. We're going to be knocking on the door about our friends at Indeed. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. The search for better application is Indeed. And when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with all candidates faster. The best part, all listeners of our show, even though I'm butchering this ad read steal, get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please go enjoy the Locked On NHL Podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insight on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Flip. Yep. This is a very intriguing and interesting top 5 target list that we've got cooking on the Vegas Golden Knights going into this upcoming season. You said it yourself. If I didn't have Noah Hanifin number 2, we were going to be talking about him soon. I have Noah Hanifin number 3 for everything that you list off there. I think this is going to, again, another guy, a new addition to this Vegas Golden Knights team that is going to do wonders for them down the road. He gets that massive contract with them. He's going to be happy playing in this group. I think this is easily a guy who can quarterback the top power play unit, because we know the struggles that Shea Theodore, again, staying healthy, Alex Pietrangelo staying healthy, sometimes struggling on the offensive side of his game. Noah Hanifin brings a lot of upside on the defensive side to this already very tough and durable team. On the defensive side of things. Last season, 80 games played, 47-point total. He had 12 points in the 19 games he played with Vegas. You got to love the peripherals, though. 164 shots. 164 shots, 121 blocks, and 63 hits. I think this guy has 50 points written all over him. Again, it depends on the ability to stay healthy alongside his teammates, the ability to stay healthy alongside him. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, I'm looking at you boys right now. Remain healthy, get over 70 games played, but Noah Hanifin, number 3 off the list for me.
Yeah, hey, look, I'm loving the confidence in the point total. I might be just slightly more sheepish on it, especially because I got to get this off the chest. The Vegas Golden Knights target steal, aside from Eichel and Hanifin, in my opinion, Hertl brings a little bit more risk with him. That was a very serious knee surgery that he went through last season.
Yeah.
So is the upside there with Hertl? For sure. Could you get more out of him? Most likely. He's a centerman over a D-man, but I'm going to play it safe and I'm going to go with Hanifin. But after those two guys steal, and let me explain my reasoning here in a second, I'm going to be very wary with this Vegas Golden Knights team. Should they still be in the mix for a playoffs spot? Yes. But they bookended the season with, they bookended last season, a middle part of the majority of the year, by being very bad. They had a great start. They finished strong to snag the last playoff spot. And I know they got bounced by the Dallas Stars, but they got bounced. And they lost in the first round. And let me just ream them all off because I have them here. Logan Thompson out the door. Marchessault out the door. Chandler Stevenson out the door. Not there for long, but Anthony Mantha out the door. And then really important depth pieces. Alec Martinez, William Carrier, and Michael Amadio. And I know those last few names don't exactly bring fantasy relevance, but what they do bring is support to the fantasy relevant pieces that we are going to look at and we have looked at. But also all of these names still have come with serious injury concern. To me, as much as we love Bruce Cassidy, we love what George McPhee has done in the front office, everything else. This guy, McCrimmon has swung for the fences and they've done amazing. They got a cup in the last 2 years, not taking away from any of that. It's a tipping point for me. I like to say that, and I'm being wary. So I got Eichel 1, Hanifin 2, and I got Hertl at 3. So you and I are very close here. Yeah. I'm feeling it. I think we've covered these 3 players very nicely. if you're okay with it, hit me with your target at number 4. But I do have concerns about this team because lastly, I'll spit it back to you. In terms of their power play and special teams, they were not good last year, Steele, hovering around 15th, 16th in the NHL or worse. My tabs are struggling right here. Vegas, 20th best power play in the NHL. They're going to have to be better, and I just don't really see it.
Yeah, they're going to have to be better. And again, this is a strong team, but they have to remain healthy. And, going back to your point about depth players, take into consideration, maybe we talk about it at the end of the episode. They also do get Victor Olofsson. They also get Alexander Holtz on that third line pairing. For me, I think this is a little bit of a shot in the dark with the 4th target off the list here.
Okay.
But he's been the most healthy out of any Vegas Golden Knights player that still remains on this team. William Karlsson is the 4th target for me. Okay. He has been the most healthiest. He's been the most consistent player. Maybe doesn't jump off the page name-wise or skill-wise or, again, with every player that he's playing with right now. But you got to look at the stats and take this into account. 70 games last year, full 82 games the year prior to that, 67 the year prior to that, 56 in the COVID year, which 56 games was the full season for that. So he's been the most durable. He's been the most consistent, 60 points, 53 points. Again, career year in the first year with Vegas, 78 points. I don't think he ever gets back to that total, back to, again, his career year in the first season. But for me, the consistency that he brings right now, he's definitely improved his game over the time with Vegas. The numbers have jumped up as well from 135 to 161 to 175 shots last season, 46 blocks, 43 hits. He's consistently good on the power play, even though they did struggle last year, 20th best on the power play. This is a guy who, again, for the most part, plays third line center position, especially now with Hertl being that second line center and having that sort of solidified for himself. He's going to be the third line center moving forward. So maybe that hurts his value going into the season, but he's still been the most consistent. You can depend on him, especially if someone goes down to injury. He's going to jump up in the top 6 forward group. Again, I like this player. I have him as one of those depth guys near the bottom of my team. One of the last 5 picks I'm looking at for William Karlsson. So he's at number 5 for me.
Yeah, number 4, you mean, right? You got him.
Sorry, number 4.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, depending on the format, you might not even be drafting this player. So no, I'm backing you up here because look, unfortunately, I think this is the safe play at 4. So let me back myself up here when I take Adin Hill at 4. Ilya Samsonov coming in as the backup goaltender and Logan Thompson going to Washington. To me, as much as Adin Hill has also struggled to stay in the cage for injury reasons, when he has been in there, he has been stellar. And I know the Stanley Cup run from the 2 years ago was seemingly a long time ago. He can still get it done. And look, one thing this team will be is hard to play against in its own end, given that bruising line of big boys on the back end. That's a lot of B's. But speaking of which, Bruce Cassidy hangs his hat on being a defensive first coach. He plays a tough brand of hockey in his own end. And with that blue line steal, I'm going to like Adin Hill at number 4. This goaltender has proven, and I know the injury angle is covered here. 19, 12, and 2 shutouts, 271 goals against, and a 909 save percentage. Pretty good numbers, even though he was up and down, and the injuries were a factor. 6'6", I love me a tall goaltender. Adin Hill, for me, comes off the board at number 4. It's riskier, but I played it safe up my draft picks with taking Hanifin over Hertl, so I'm okay getting a little risky here. Also, he is going to be the number 1. That's clear. Samsonov is not challenging 100%. For any starts like Logan Thompson was, so value goes up there. Hit me with Adin Hill at number 4. And honestly, Steele, if he stays healthy, I'm very happy with Adin Hill as my second goaltender.
Again, that's the big if he stays healthy. That's the concern with a lot of the players we're talking about on this Vegas Golden Knights team. That's why even though there's tons of value to be had, you have to be very wary about where you're drafting these players. Lucky. You don't want to reach. You got to get lucky sometimes about if they can fall down the board. Flip and I are going to come back after the break with our 5th target for this Vegas Golden Knights roster. So maybe some potential players who can have a breakout season that we just mentioned as well. Again, some players we haven't even mentioned that maybe don't make the top 5 list. All of that and more coming up next on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. But first, this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel it anytime you want. Flip and I are diving deep into that offer right there because FanDuel is looking out for all of us right now. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, Flip. That was an absolute touchdown right now. We're excited for the NFL season coming up. We're excited for the NHL season coming up. Sports is sportsing once again. It feels like it's coming right back to us.
We back.
1 month away. We're super excited, but we're also excited about getting to our 5th target from this Golden Knights team, this upcoming fantasy draft. Flip.
Yep.
Over to you, my friend. There's still a lot of options for this fifth target for both of us. I haven't talked about Adin Hill. We haven't talked about Mark Stone. We haven't talked really about the blue line besides Noah Hanifin.
Nope.
Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at the number 5 target off this list?
So if things go the way I expect them to, Steele, and I'm not writing this team off, not even close. I just think in the past 2 years, there have been times where I've looked at this squad, and for obvious reasons because they have a cup banner, but you expect them to win most nights. They're a favorite in most betting situations, especially when they're at home. I think they're really going to be in tough to run through the league in the nature that they have for the most part over the 2 years that we have just seen. The depth is one thing. The injury concern is another. But at the end of the day, when you pull out the backup goaltender that was Logan Thompson, and as much as I just said to take Adin Hill 4th off the board, this just leaves your team very vulnerable. Security blanket, Michael Amadio. Security blanket, Alec Martinez, Chandler Stevenson. Amazing depth guys that allow these top players to miss chunks of games like Mark Stone, Eichel, and otherwise, and the team is still okay. You run through 3 and 4 different goaltenders and you're still winning. So I'll spit it out at this. Ivan Barbashev, reliable. A guy who fills out categorical coverage. Is he going to blow the doors off points-wise? No, he's not. And Mark Stone, a better player for sure. William Karlsson, more output on points for sure, but I'm going to go with Barbie at 5, Steele. I'm feeling this pick. It's a little bit safer of all the angles you could go at here. There's some others, but for me, it's Barbashev, 180 hits last year, 45 points. I'll take what I can get at the 5th spot, but I got to be careful with this Vegas Golden Knights team, like you said.
Again, if you're looking for consistency, you're looking for durability, easily Ivan Barbashev could have been at number 4 for me over William Karlsson as well. He could have been higher on this list because of the consistency that he's brought over his time with the Vegas Golden Knights and honestly in the league right now. For me, I'm going with a guy who I absolutely adore. I absolutely adore this player, and it actually has that in his name. Shea Theodore is my 5th target off the list for me. I like this defenseman a lot. And honestly, I was even debating about having him as the number 2 target off this list instead of Noah Hanifin. I went with Hanifin because of the durability and consistency and the skill set that he brings. Again, being able to play almost a full season, the offensive side of his game. I think Shea Theodore is just as good, if not better. The only concern with this guy is he hasn't been able to stay healthy over the last 3 out of 4 seasons. The last time he's played almost a full year was back in 2018, where he played 79 games. Over the last 2 seasons, 47 games last year, 55 games the year before that. Just hasn't been able to stay healthy, even though 42 points in 47 games, 78 blocks, 105 shots on net. I think this guy has major skill ability. He's shown what he can do, jumping up into the play, going end to end, and showcasing his hands, not just as a defenseman, but he can really make some defensemen look silly out there when he decides to. I love this player, but you still have to be concerned about the injuries that he has dealt with over the last 2 seasons. That's why he comes at number 5 and not higher on this list. Unfortunately, Mark Stone, Adin Hill, and Ivan Barbashev do not make the top 5 for me. Again, injury concern. I love Adin Hill as a goaltender. I just think there's a lot more. Again, when it depends on the format you're playing.
For
even
sure.
in the case, whether you're doing just, save percentage and goals against with wins and shutouts, whether you're doing, fantasy points for saves and goals against, whatever it is, I just don't think he sees enough rubber. I think he's, again, like for the most part, you've said, he's had that depth and that protective blanket in front of him when he's in the cage, which kind of, de-escalates his value a little bit in mine. Even though I do like him a lot, Adin Hill, Mark Stone, Ivan Barbashev, they're right there at number 6 for me. And there's a few other guys that we could probably talk about who just joined the team in this new season.
I'm kind of surprised you don't have Barbashev. The other takes I'm here for. I know you really like Barbashev and you're Mr. Peripheral on these breakdowns, so I'm a little bit surprised because Shea Theodore's peripherals aren't there. However, these aren't lists on teams that are as finite as others, so I'm okay to get a little creative and not trip you too hard. Victor Olofsson comes in. Olofsson, he played with Jack Eichel in Buffalo. He is going to get a very good look to do his thing offensively. That's a name that you could definitely take a look at.
Got to take a look at that name.
Maybe he's like your last forward or a bench fill-in or a week-to-week. That's an intriguing name. And honestly, Steele, Alexander Holtz, if Victor Olofsson doesn't stick, he is going to get a shot too. That's a 7th overall draft pick, one in which has all the skill. I don't know about the two-way game or the IQ, but all the skill to stick in a top 6 lineup in the NHL. So keeper dynasty side of things, where these big targets aren't going to be out there for you, Alexander Holtz, Olofsson, those are 2 of the names I would go after. We didn't bring up Alex Pietrangelo. We didn't bring up how good the blue line is, even their bottom pairing in Nick Hague and Zach Whitecloud, not fantasy-wise, but week to week, maybe some hits, some pims. That's what I'm looking at, though, Steele. I've got concerns for this team, though. I got to get it off the chest once more. That's how I'm feeling headed into this season for the Knights.
You have to have concern when, again, Jonathan Marchessault, a guy from last year who was not brought back, played the most games, had the most points, isn't brought back on the deal that he wanted at 5.5. Again, there's a lot of, cap constraints with this Vegas Golden Knights team. But, I mean, Jack Eichel, 63 games. Mark Stone, 56 games. Shea Theodore, 47. Alex Pietrangelo, 64. These are some of their top players, if not the top 4 players, and they're missing over 20 games. That's a major concern with this Vegas Golden Knights team. It's very strange that neither of us had Mark Stone in the top 5. We didn't even really mention him fantasy-wise. Again, draftable player, but with the injury concern that he's had, I'm not even looking at him until at least the 11th round.
I guess I just really have no confidence that he will play a full season, Steve.
He won't.
All the mileage on his body, aside from just being banged up, the team being as successful as it's been, and him going on deep runs all the way, and also being an absolute horse in those playoffs as well. I just have no confidence in him playing more than 50 or 60 games, and therefore, I'd rather take the peripherals of guys like Barbashev, Hertl, and otherwise, and that's how I looked at it. I think you can agree there.
Well said. Yeah, it's exactly how I'm looking at it right now. There's a draftable player, but you got to wait. You don't reach on these players because you know that somewhere down the line, he's going to miss some time for the Vegas Golden Knights. We're not going to miss any time, though, on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We got all the content you need. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen. Make sure you go check out the Locked On NHL Podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to the Locked On NHL channel in the description, so you don't even have to search for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Again, from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets this summer, and we shall see you back here again on Friday.
Peace.